The problems with the LGBT community and how my identity was erased. Were you expecting Blaire White to say this type of bullshit? Well, I got something in stores for you. It came from this fucking weeb. Now, for context, I used to watch this person, not on YouTube, more or less on Twitch, because I wasn't aware of the amount of dirty crimes this person's been up to. This thing Sonic Fox was a major red flag for me. However, shitposting aside, the actual red flag came from the fact that he used historical context to justify a transphobic slur. Oh, hello there, Blaire White. Something tells me that he got his intellectualism from a cereal box for praising Blaire White of all people. However, we got somebody giving this Monroe fella the dietary supplement of Up Yours. But that's just the tip of the dirty laundry we're about to unfold. Now, let's waste no time and dunk on weeds already.
As you might already know, I don't think people are special for being LGBT. I say that fitting into the category myself, but when you look at the majority of the LGBT community and what is generally pushed by it in media, they feel very differently. In some regards, I'd honestly compare it to a cult at times. I recently saw someone come out on Twitter followed by several posts saying how every trans account is now going to follow them, but why? Like, if you had no interest in them at all beforehand, why should you care now just because you call them a she instead of a he?
Keep in mind, he's gonna bring up Twitter a couple of times. Given that Twitter is a gamble to me, I recommend not to take the tweet as face value.
I honestly have given it a try to be friends with these types, but the people who approach you over such a meaningless commonality, all they ever want to do is talk about how gay they are or sex or shit. I don't fucking care. Dude, I just want to talk about Dragon Ball or Smash Brothers or something.
That sounds like to me that you actively derail conversation about sexuality, which I must say, there should be no shame.
I can't even tell you how many times I've visited some trans or gay person's page, and the only discernible thing about their personality is that they're queer. Get a fucking personality. Being gay isn't interesting. Like, sure, people can be or do whatever they like, but you know, just like how I complained that this is shitty character writing, it's probably a shitty personality in reality, too.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Too bad you only look at the person's Twitter page for only like a few seconds. Someone being enthusiastic with their sexuality is just one part of their personality. You're also dismissing the fact that the individual person in question, social media is the only safe haven for them to express their sexuality and gender. As much as you spew your garbage talking points, I don't really see the problem.
You know what? It's not even just the LGBT community that does this. E3 just ended, and because of my profession, I tend to check out other people's videos and opinions on events like this. One such video I ended up watching was speaking about how meaningful and what a statement it was that Sony started its presentation on a lesbian kiss. Now, I don't think it's bad that they did this, I don't, but I don't think it's this big, amazing achievement. It's a marketing move like any other that companies do this month because they know people like this will eat this shit up.
Well, no shit. Many companies pull that type of stunt because it's free real estate. Now, keep this in mind, those same people can criticize the company for pulling that stunt.
It's actively insulting to be acting like it's the first, choosing to ignore the actual progress already made. But this all kind of ties back to Pride Month in that it feels like the epitome of this mindset, that it's important. Much like how Morgan Freeman thinks Black History Month is unnecessary because it's just American history, I don't think there should be a month dedicated to the fact that I choose to suck dick.
This is the part I like to argue that Morgan Freeman has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. Black History Month is more than just a US history and a egotistical power trip. It's a celebration from liberation from oppression, or at least how I interpret it as. Let's not forget now that people of color were actively oppressed by racist motherfuckers in the past and in the present too. So Black History Month is here to stay. I want to mention that Morgan Freeman also say the way to end systemic racism is to intentionally ignore it. Yeah, not a great philosopher.
Let's talk about these pride events that are prominent this month. You've probably already heard this for yourself, how overly sexual they can be. Now, I'm always a firm believer that sexuality isn't inherently a bad thing, but this is not how you normalize being LGBT. This display that's put on at events borders on gross, I'm sorry. This doesn't make us look normal, it makes us look like a bunch of sexual deviants in a parade.
Oh no, a bunch of people wearing outfits that you didn't like in a pride parade. What an absolute fucking cry. Huh, strange. This is the same argument that people on the right would use to dismiss Pride Month and Pride Parade in favor for something more cringy like straight pride. I want to say that Pride Month is a celebration of liberation from oppression. Fucking of course people want to be liberated from oppression, and you complain about their clothing is not a real valid concern.
I also want to bring up the fact that I constantly see people say things like it's transphobic to not date a trans woman when you like women. I hate to break it to you guys, but not liking certain genitalia is a completely valid reason to not date someone.
Hey buddy, can you not LARP as Blaire White?
Like, I see people getting offended at the mere mention of the word. It's not transphobic when some dude talks about wanting to jack his dick to some cross-dressing anime boy. Maybe it's a little transphobic that you're even implying it is.
Why wouldn't a person be offended by the mere mention of a word? They understand in historical context that word has been used as a derogatory slur against trans people. You're downplaying the fact that many trans people would get murdered by their loved ones.
Though if we look in the opposite direction but keeping to this theme of invalidation, are all the new age articles and posts talking about how you don't need gender dysphoria to be transgender? Let's think about this. This is the equivalent of saying you don't need depression to be depressed, you don't need anxiety to have an anxiety disorder. Transitioning is the cure for gender dysphoria. The usual defense of this argument is saying non-binary people don't have dysphoria, so you don't need to be trans. But that's not trans. Like, I don't care if you call yourself non-binary or anything else for that matter, but that's not transgender. Transgender has so much research behind it. You can't just lump yourself into it because you feel like changing your goddamn pronouns. Being transgender, having gender dysphoria, is something very serious, and you're making a joke of these people's problems and plights by saying this.
It shouldn't matter if the person has gender dysphoria or not. It's about the willingness to transition to the gender of their own choosing. Hell, even then, non-binary people can have gender dysphoria. But nice job gatekeeping non-binary people, you transphobic piece of shit.
I want to go back to the statement I just made to make a point. As I said, I'm just a guy, I was born a guy. Maybe I look a little different, but at the end of the day, I still and always have considered myself a guy. However, a lot of people in the LGBT community, particularly the T part of it, have trouble accepting that. I've had trans women tell me I'm just an egg waiting to hatch, as in come out as trans. I've had them say really offensive things about how all feminine guys are trans, they just don't realize it yet. The guys who wear feminine stuff either do it for attention or because they're trans, implying that a guy can't just like dressing feminine. I've had trans women say that men I'm with can't be gay because I'm a tramp and gay men only like men.
Huh, that's weird. That's the same invalidating behavior that the LGBTQIA plus community like to condemn. But if you're implying that as erasing your identity, I think you're taking it way too serious than it has to be.
Now, these are only some examples I pulled from my head or found going through my timeline, which I might show on screen. There have been a lot more cases. I'm explaining this to say that it is like a cult, it's a cultist mindset. A few years ago, I was of an understanding that the movement being pushed was guys could be feminine, women could be masculine. And I thought that was a good message. There's nothing wrong with conforming to gender roles, and there's nothing wrong with not. People should just be how they want. So I find it kind of funny and a little sad that this community that paints this message of acceptance ended up to me being the least accepting of them all.
So let me get this straight. You think that the LGBTQIA plus community is a cult in mindset because you were disillusioned by a few encounters that you may or may not started? That's a weak and dangerous excuse.
Because I'm a guy who looks feminine enough like a girl, I have to be trans. I'm not, and I see this mindset pushed on feminine guys as well. Pushing into taking hormones, forcing gender dysphoria, suicide, you name it. It's fucking horrible.
Oh, enough of your insipid whining and claims, Blaire White.
As I said, when I see this person, their existence doesn't bother me. They can live how they want. But I do find them to have a lot of despicable qualities, and you know that is a personal gripe. But one of those, for example, is one that's really bad. The fact that they are underage and sell lewds of themselves, going back to younger than they are today. I think most of us will see this as bad, yeah? I think this person in general holds the trans community in really bad light. Usually I don't think that's possible for one person to have a massive effect, but that's because people speak against the bad eggs, when some popular figure is outed as one.
It should be obvious that person would have been condemned for dubious behavior and selling nude pics of themselves at a young age, but I want to know, why should I trust anything that you have to say given your transphobic behavior and leaving an entire community of people as a cult that's trying to erase your identity?
Recently, Jack Dorsey, the owner of Twitter, posted a photo, which revealed he ate a Chick-fil-A. This was followed by LGBT Twitter harassing him over this, calling him a bigot for choosing to eat at this restaurant. Now don't get me wrong, it's perfectly fine to boycott something. I get why some people choose to not eat at Chick-fil-A, given the owner's comments on gay marriage a few years ago, and the fact that he personally gives to anti-LGBT foundations. But that's no reason to harass people. I'm not here to tell you what's right, I'm here to tell you what's wrong. No matter how just your cause is, if you harass people, you look like the bad guy.
Didn't you hear yourself? Donate to anti-LGBTQIA Plus Foundation? Ring any bells? Jack isn't gonna come and personally congratulate you. Unless you have any form of connection to him, you're just an ant.
And the extremists I talk about in this video are generally the ones that wear this LGBT label the loudest, constantly bringing attention to this aspect of themselves, bringing some false importance to what is ultimately something not that meaningful, and making the rest of us look bad from my perspective. I've talked about a lot of things in this video that bother me, but I think everything connects back to my main point at the beginning. And if you take anything from this video, please let it be this.
It's not my fault that you're ashamed of your own sexuality to the point where you're willing to downplay scenarios and imply that you're the only good part of the LGBTQIA plus community. In conclusion, what can we learn from all this? Monroe could go fuck himself. Ooh, kinky. Monroe had created this false narrative where people from the LGBTQIA plus community are angry and whiny and cancel people for not following every instruction to the letter. Not to mention that this motherfucker is a gatekeeping transphobe, but this is exactly what happens when you take everything what Blaire White had to say as gossip.